Oil is surging to start the week after Saudi Arabia raised the price of crude being sold to Asian consumers. The international crude benchmark Brent rose 1% to top $120 a barrel. Now, it's recognition that the world's largest exporter of the commodity expects global supply levels to remain tight. That's despite the oil cartel OPEC, which is led by Saudi Arabia, announcing plans to raise output to meet growing global demand. Now, since the start of the year, the cost of crude has risen by more than 50%. That's due to the crisis in Ukraine and the resulting sanctions on Russia, the world's second leading exporter. Over the past 12 months, prices have risen close to 70%. Now, for more on the story, let's go to Neil Atkinson. He's an independent energy industry analyst joining us from Paris. Welcome back to the program, Neil. Now, what do you make of this decision by the Saudi Arabian government to raise the price of oil being sold to Asian consumers, and coming off the back of the OPEC meeting last week, too, where they raised their output?
Well, the expectation on the part of the Saudis is that the Asian market remains pretty strong. It's a long-term growth market. We have China coming out of lockdowns, and that is going to see a rebound in economic activity and thus for oil demand. We don't know the pace of the rebound yet, but the increase that they've made to their Asian prices is actually relatively modest. So I don't think we should get perhaps too carried away by it. But there are some longer-term issues affecting the oil market, which you mentioned in your introduction a second ago, and they are going to come back in the next few days and weeks, and we'll have to analyze what they mean.
All right, so given those issues pushing up the price of oil, how much more do you think the cost of crude is going to go up before consumers start to make adjustments and businesses to maybe start buying less of crude to cut on their costs?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to get into a guessing game about how high crude prices could go. You see numbers out there put out by various people. What we don't yet see fully as we're going into the summer season here in the Northern Hemisphere is how much pent-up demand there is out there on the part of consumers who spent the summers of 2020 and 2021 largely in lockdown. They want to go out and about, they want to travel to see family, they want to travel for vacation, they want to spend money that many of them have been saving during the lockdown. So we're not really very sure yet how much sensitivity there is to prices, which, as you say, are significantly higher than they were a year ago. So, talking about demand destruction, that may yet come, but I don't think yet there's too much signs that demand has been adversely affected outside of Asia.
So given where demand is right now, where else can the world turn to for some extra supply of crude? We know OPEC members, some of the smaller ones, have been struggling to raise their output. Can we expect a lot of that crude to come out of the ground soon? Can that supply come online in the foreseeable future?
The short answer is no, and there are various reasons for that. If we assume, for the sake of argument, that the sanctions against Russia, which are being driven by a combination of the European Union, the G7, and NATO, if those sanctions remain in place and Russian supplies are severely limited by those measures, the ability to compensate for those reduced volumes is limited. We've seen in recent months that the OPEC plus countries, leaving aside Russia for a moment, have not been able to increase their production to the levels that they themselves said they would do, and that cannot change significantly in the short term. Only Saudi Arabia, the UAE, to some extent Iraq, has any significant spare production capacity, but it's not as great as people think that it is. Outside of those countries, you have to rely on growth from the United States, which will come, but it'll be gradual. And aside from the United States, there are very few places elsewhere in the world where higher production can come from. And that is a reality. There is no short-term easy solution to replacing a significant loss of Russian barrels.
All right, Neil Atkinson, thank you for helping break down the story for us from Paris.